Say hi to the girls this morning. Say hi, girls. Hi. Say hi there. Say hi. Yeah. Well, today we're going to talk about the Nashville Christmas Day explosion, the economic condition of the country, and how it compares to the first Great Depression, and how this election hasn't been finished yet. This is Granny Fisher, and I ask you to, if you like these videos, subscribe, click the notification bell, and share the video with your friends. I'm also publishing this on my library channel, lbry.tv, and then you put a slant at Granny Fisher. I'll put the link down below. On Christmas morning, in the wee hours of the morning, an RV exploded on 2nd Avenue North in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the capital of my state. It was right in front of an At&T building, not the corporate headquarters, which Nashvillians call the Batman building because it looks like Batman's headgear, but a secondary building. Within 24 hours, the investigators had already narrowed down the suspects to a man in Antioch, which is a bedroom community for Nashville. And he had lived in a house for about 20-something years. He was apparently divorced. They said he was single. My husband said he was divorced, so he might have seen something else about the man. And they matched the DNA of human remains at the blast site with some DNA from some of this man's possessions. But there were a lot of suspicious things about this explosion. For one, the man didn't leave any kind of message behind. Another was there were no bomb-making materials found in his home. And as far as anyone knew, he had not made any kind of manifesto, wasn't part of any kind of terrorist group. There were a lot of unanswered questions about this man. In addition, as the multiple camera angles began to show about the blast site, there were some questions about the blast itself. It knocked some bricks off the front of the At&T building, and behind those, or it knocked the facade, let's say, off the front of the At&T building, and behind it was a double thick brick wall. And so this was a hardened site of some sort. My husband looked on the street view of Google Maps, and as you passed by the front of the building, the door was obscured. It was blurred as if it were a government facility. And there's some other information. I want you to look at the link below the description here on this video. There's a link to an article in a conservative publication showing a lot of pictures of the site and some questionable details about the explosion. So nobody knows for sure why this man blew himself up, or if he blew himself up. Nobody knows for sure what it was about. But one thing we can say is that whoever did it did not want to kill anyone, because there was a broadcast over a loudspeaker for somewhere around 15 to 30 minutes before the explosion, warning people to evacuate the blast site. So whatever it was, whether it was to expose the fact that this building was a government facility, or as some people say, to destroy something in the basement of the facility, which someone had posted 4 days before the blast that there were voting machines, Dominion voting machines from Georgia, were being transported to that particular AT&T site for forensic audit of the machines. So whatever the purpose was, it's probably not just some fruitcake blew himself up in his RV. There are a lot of questions about it. And one of the main questions in my mind is, will there be more? Will there be retaliation? Will there be more investigation and more arrests? Will there be more blasts like that and possibly injure some people? So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we peons don't know about. We don't know what's going on, but it just looks suspicious. By the way, in this video, most of the things I refer to that are on the internet, I'll put a link down below the description so you can follow up with your own investigation. Okay, so we've got that. We've got Donald Trump asking his supporters to be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th when the electoral votes will be opened. Several states have sent competing electoral groups to the Electoral College. It's terribly confusing. This was a rotten election. This was a very crooked election. In Pennsylvania, they have found that there were 200,000 more votes counted than there were people who voted. Georgia still has an election next week for 2 Senate races, 2 runoffs. Loeffler and Perdue are the 2 Republican candidates. And if they win their election bid, then the Republicans will have a majority in the Senate. And they already gained, I think about 10 seats in the House. They're still not in the majority in the House, but they certainly gained some influence and some seats. And that's another suspicious thing. If Donald Trump was beaten by Joe Biden, why did so many officials get swept into office on his coattails? Usually it's the other way around. The person that wins at the top of the ticket usually lends support and momentum to the ones below him on the ticket. And it was just a terribly suspicious election, a terribly crooked election. And I don't know when or where Donald Trump draws the line and at what point he will say enough, I just quit, I give up. I don't think it's in the man to quit or give up. But either way, there's going to be violence. There's going to be problems. If Joe Biden gets in office, the violence may be delayed by a few months. If Donald Trump remains in office, it'll probably be immediate. Whether it degenerates into a civil war or not, we don't know. These are just troubling times. Okay, and the other thing is the financial factor in this next year. I watched a really interesting video by a young man with a strong British accent. And as I said before, there's a link down below regarding this. It says the Great Depression. He's doing a series on the Great Depression based on actual documents from the time, not anything that's been written about the Great Depression since then. These are diaries, journals, news stories at the time. He's reading about what people in the 1920s and 30s experienced firsthand. And it's very enlightening. You should watch his videos, especially this second one, which has to do with the financial institutions, and that's the one I have the link to down below. And he points out the parallels between what happened in the 30s and what's happening now in our financial sector. And it's a scary comparison. It really is. Because what happened then was so sudden, people couldn't get their money out of the banks. And when the banks collapsed, they lied. They told people, we're just closing for a day or so until we can complete an audit and then we'll open back up. But then they didn't open back up, and people were left without any ability to get their cash out of the bank. And then some of them were left hanging for several years. Their money was frozen in the bank for several years, and when they finally were able to get it out, it had devalued so much as to be worth only a fraction of what it was when they put it in the bank. So these are troubling statistics that I highly recommend you look at these. Look at that video that's linked below about the Great Depression. I think it will startle you, maybe scare you a bit, and you might end up changing your plans for where your money is and how you have it invested. The president finally signed the stimulus bill. He had a lot of reservations about the omnibus spending bill, which, although the COVID stimulus bill was a separate bill, they were joined together and attached together, and he signed them as one. Originally, he told Congress to send him a better bill because there were so many things in it. $300 million for Israel, $2.5 billion for Egypt, money going to Pakistan for gender studies, money for museums that haven't been open in a year because of the COVID pandemic. They also had things in there that would make streaming a movie that you have no rights to a felony that could land you in prison for 10 years. Reposting a meme that you don't have permission for is a misdemeanor under some of the legislation that's hidden in this bill. And they also put in there a provision that he would have to go, the president would have to go before Congress before he could invoke the Insurrection Act. And that shows where their thinking lies. They are concerned that President Trump will declare martial law, which puts local law enforcement under the control of the military, and then within that martial law, he could invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow him to do other things I haven't looked into in great detail, but I think it would involve arresting some of the people that were behind the illegal election, having a new election, that sort of thing. But the problem is that to any leftist or to any casual observer, it would smack of tyranny, and I don't think it would reflect well on President Trump, even though I think he has good motives at heart. He wants to see the liars prosecuted, and he wants to see a fair election held, because he secured more votes for a re-election than any previous president. And nobody believes Joe Biden came close. Nobody believes that. So these are scary times. But anyway, so he signed the bill. Everybody's supposed to get a $600 stimulus check if you filed taxes in the last couple of years. If the Senate approves what the House has done in increasing that stimulus to $2,000 per person, then we'll get a bigger chunk. Now, some people are very concerned that this will tank the economy, but I hate to tell you, the economy is already tanked. It's like when the Titanic hit the iceberg and the band just kept playing, and the people at first didn't realize what danger they were in. This economy is the Titanic. It's already hit the iceberg. We're just not in the water yet. So if you get a stimulus check in the mail, or if you get a deposit in your bank account from the federal government, whether it's for $600 or $2,000. Take it out, use it on those things that will help you survive the year ahead. Buy food, buy seeds, buy reusable canning jar lids, buy CB radio, solar panels, a well bucket, buy hay for your barn if you have livestock. Put up things that will help you in the year ahead. If you're in debt and you're not too far in debt, try and get out of debt. That way things won't get repossessed on you if you can't pay it. Since my husband and I are on Social Security, we're basically just trusting that that payment will keep coming, because if it doesn't, we're going to be camping out in my son's backyard. Goats and all. So anyway, I'll put some links down below. Please check those out. Be ready for 2021, because it's a rocky road ahead and it's not over yet. 2020 was just a warm-up. Look for a lot worse to come in 2021. And that's not doomer porn. That's just a smart person looking at the evidence in front of our eyes and saying, yes, that's what's going to happen. There will be violence. There will be food shortages. There will be an economic upheaval, a political upheaval, and we may end up with foreign soldiers on our shores. Just be ready. Do the best you can for your family, your MAG, that's the prepper term for a mutual assistance group, for your tribe, the people you consider your friends, your family, the ones that have your back and you have their back. Look at what you can do to improve the situation for your group so you can survive the year ahead and maybe the years ahead. And I wish you all the best. And let's just pray our way into 2021 and hope God's got our back. This is Granny Fisher. I'll see you next time.